Hello and welcome to the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron and special guest, Daniel Coughlin. What's up, fellas?
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Always a fun day. We get to have a guest on. Dan, pleasure to have you on, talk with some Bulls, which is a nice, young, intriguing team to a degree, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah, there'll be plenty to talk about today. As a quick reminder, as always, you can check out the show on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Google Play, and Dash Radio. Before we preview the Bulls for next season, we're going to look back at last year, 27-55. Had a really slow start, I believe, 3-17. They had a nice month of December. But what were your thoughts on the Bulls last year?
The Bulls situation was very unique in the sense that a lot of Bulls fans wanted to have optimism and they want to believe in that winner. The Bulls have a strong culture dating back to the Jordan days. So I think a lot of people that grew up on that, they expect a winner and they want a winner. But sometimes losing is winning, especially in the modern NBA. So you mentioned that little streak they put together where they pushed themselves probably just a little bit out of those top couple of picks. And that's frustrating. But then you have the gems of, like, as they call him, the finisher, Lauri Markkanen. It was kind of a surprise, in my opinion, anyway. He obviously had upside, but to see how he did. And on the flip side, it was the closest thing to a fresh start that this team has experienced in, I don't know, like a decade. You had the Butler exit that has happened. You've had, the Rose exit, the Noah exit. You've had Gibson finally on his way. Theoretically, it was the beginning of something that hopefully will continue to grow. But into what? That's the question.
Yeah, after trading away Jimmy Butler, which, I still don't know how I completely feel about that move. Getting young guys like Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn really excelled last year, so that was good to see. I've been high on Lauri Markkanen since the draft, and he, like you said, Dan, really impressed. His offensive game is far along than I thought it was at the time he was drafted. And then, guys like Miricic, who was eventually traded away, Portis. Like you mentioned, sometimes when you're bad, it's actually good. And obviously they were slightly too good. I think I don't know if they won. They won a couple, like that one streak obviously was bad for the case of getting a high lottery pick. But LaVine came back, and obviously he wasn't great. And then all the rumors came out that the front office wasn't sold on him. But I'm okay with this young core now, but someone's got to learn how to play defense.
Yeah. I think for the first year of the rebuild after trading Butler was pretty successful. Not only did Lauri Markkanen show some stuff, Chris Dunn as well, but they're able to move Miricic for a first-round pick, which I always think is big when you're doing a rebuild. Anytime you can get another pick, bring in another rookie, I think that's a success. But before we move on to the highlight and disappointment of last season, we got to talk a little bit about the Miricic and Portis situation. Obviously, they had that scuffle early in the season. What were your thoughts on that one?
Well, I don't know. Is it okay for me to say that I thought it was great? I don't know. I really liked that there was, something there. I thought it was absolutely a crazy situation. It added a storyline and some depth to a team that otherwise looked like it was going to be almost a little too rough. But again, maybe it created opportunity. So where the Bulls experienced disaster, they're creating opportunity by, kind of forcing themselves into an either-or situation, kind of to a limited extent with Portis and Miricic, and Portis finally being allowed to, I don't know, show if he's got anything, and then like you mentioned, Miricic being moved for a pick, and the Bulls acquiring a pick and not immediately trading it. That's a remarkable feat as well.
Yeah, I think both guys ended up recovering well from the fight. Portis literally broke this dude's face. He broke Miricic's face in practice, which is, obviously, whenever we talk about fights in the NBA, it's normally like one guy pushes someone and then they get held back. And this was literally a fight, but no one saw it. Obviously, there was no video. The NBA always has, interesting storylines like this, and the time that J.R. Smith threw a bowl of soup. These are some of the moments that just stick out, and this is one of them for me.
And it's still going on right now. Obviously, CJ McCollum has been in the headlines for his quote about the Warriors, so it's for a great time about the petty NBA. But moving on to highlight of the season, what was the biggest highlight, positive takeaway? It could be a game, a player. What about last season was a highlight for the Bulls?
I really have to pick some of the obvious, what I would call low-hanging fruit, which is what I kind of mentioned. And I think I'll come back to this a lot in our little chat today. It's got to be all love for Lauri Markkanen. There were some highlights. It was nice to see LaVine come back. He had some high-scoring games and some things like that. But Lauri, he was as close to a home run as you can get to for a first-year player that the Bulls have had essentially in, since maybe back to Rose. I mean, Butler obviously turned into a great player, but we really haven't seen anyone have a start the way Markkanen has in a while. Dynamic on offense, in my opinion. I know I spliced together some of his highlights I threw up on my YouTube so I could reference them later, and he had a few coast-to-coast plays. He had some, cross-ups. Obviously, he shot a lot from range. So he's got a lot of that. And if he can, add some weight to that frame, add a little bit of strength, a little bit of size, that might help him cover some of his issues that, that he had coming into the league on defense. But even if that doesn't happen, he showed so much potential and, to get in the conversation, even let alone to make an all rookie team, just to even be in that conversation and be a Bulls pick, that's fantastic. That's a far cry from, Eric Murphy.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Lauri too. You pretty much broke it down perfectly. So I'm just going to talk about one play that sticks out for me. It's when he dunked on Cantor. It was one of obviously the Knicks are on a bad end of a lot of posterizing dunks, but this one was ferocious. I think I can't remember the exact, I think he picked it. I don't know. But either way, it was a disgusting slam by Markkanen and Markkanen. Oh, man. Here we go. We get the last names. With Lauri Markkanen. Huge slam.
Yeah, I think he has to be the highlight, and I got this via Bulls Reddit. He was the first rookie to average 15 points per game, over 7 rebounds a game, and 2 made threes. So that's really impressive. Versatility offensively, and like Daniel mentioned, adding some weight in the offseason really helped his game. On the negative side, what would be the biggest disappointment of the Bulls last season?
Yeah. I mean, this is the key. Now we're getting somewhere fun, right? Which is you use the word disappointment. So much about the Bulls is honestly disappointing. And I think if you spend any time following the Chicago Bulls fan base or interacting with them or getting feedback from them, like a lot from a lot of the stuff that I wrote about them, fans really want that winning culture. And they want that in so many ways. And there's just so much room to be disappointed when your expectations are so high. And also, I think we kind of have seen a model, right? Maybe not everyone needs to do the Sam Hinkie approach, with the process. But, we're finding out that a lot of teams, and across sports even, the bottoming out a little bit helps you get those couple of picks and get you spinning back in the right direction faster. And, the Bulls keep getting caught not doing that. The first thing that came to mind was the winning streak. If you want to call it that, where they had that really good month where they went on a tear early on in the season. And, people started thinking well, maybe they're a playoff team again this year. Again, being the key word, because they followed up, a season where they overperformed, in the opinion of a lot of people, to make that 8th seed and push the Celtics. And then, you get those hopes up again. Also, Cristiano Felicio coming off that contract. I know a lot of us, people who were following the Bulls, were really excited about him. And he always had these great pictures in the offseason. You'd see him out there with an animal or doing something fun with his big smile. And, it felt good until it didn't feel good, which is when the basketball started to count. And that was tough. Also, there was just a couple of things I wanted to make sure I noted on this. Again, disappointment, right? If you're counting up until the end of June, right when we got to that free agency, rolled over the clock on July 1st, I'm going to go ahead and also throw out there, how about disappointment of fate with Chicago, getting dealt the number 7 pick slot instead of number 6, where the Kings bounced up the board. And, maybe we're talking right now about how excited I am about Luka Doncic instead of trying to grasp at some straws of what Gar and Paxson are saying.
I mean, obviously the win streak, like you mentioned, does stick out because this team could have been, a high draft pick if they hadn't won so many games. So I think that's like the biggest disappointment is the fact that they failed at tanking. I know I follow a lot of Bulls Twitter, and it was like the often trend of, wow, the Bulls are really bad at this tanking thing. Obviously they played tough, they played hard. So I think Denzel Valentine to me too is probably a disappointment. I was kind of high on him after Summer League. What was it, 2 years ago now? Yeah, I think he had like a game winner or 1 or 2 game winners. And I thought he was going to be solid. And I know this summer he got like toasted by somebody who's not even in the NBA. Like somebody got like 40 on his head top or something like that. So like him kind of falling out of rotation a little bit. And then I mean, I wasn't necessarily disappointed with Zach LaVine's comeback. He's coming back from an ACL injury. You expect there to be a slow kind of getting back to form, and he didn't shoot overly great. But still, the lack of defense to me is kind of concerning. So I think between those three, that's my disappointment.
Yeah, you guys pretty much nailed it. I think there's a combination of a whole bunch of small things. Nothing really sticks as a huge disappointment. But moving on from there, looking at the ranking for this year, coming up from the OTG staff, the Bulls are coming in at number 26. Now, do you agree with this ranking? Think it's fair? Think it's too high, too low? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I did a little bit of homework there. I saw that you had them at 26. There were some teams right above, right below. It's a toss-up. I'm okay with it. 538 had Chicago at 27. So it's pretty similar in line, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think this is pretty fair. I feel like the Bulls are going to play themselves a couple spots higher once the season starts, but I think this is pretty accurate. I mean, every team in the bottom 5, I feel like you can kind of shuffle a little bit, and even going up to probably like 23rd or 22, these teams can kind of flip-flop.
Yeah, I think 26 is fair. There is a potential to move up a few spots, stay the same, maybe even drop 1 or 2. I think there's obviously some questions about defense, coaching, and then there's obviously always the potential to tank. I know word around Chicago is they're looking to try to compete, but you never know what'll happen. So I think 26 is pretty fair.
Yeah. I came in with obviously, like I said, it's fine. It's a toss-up. But I mean, like the Bulls, the problem with the Bulls is they have a tendency to outperform, modestly on expectations. So every time, like you look at them and you're like, okay, this team's winning 18 games, and they're like, nah, how about we take 27? It's like, all right, well, be difficult then.
It's like, don't get us those few extra spots in the draft. Just, win a few games that don't matter. But moving on to additions, talking about the draft, we'll go with draft picks. At number 7 overall, they drafted Wendell Carter Jr., has been compared to Al Horford a lot for similarities in his game. Not super flashy, but he has some skills. What are your thoughts on taking Carter at 7?
Well, I get a little nervous about the draft in general because it always feels like the very top couple of picks are very easy to get excited about and believe in. And as a guy who kind of steps back a little bit from the college game, I don't have a great feel always for players when they come in, but I try and make up for that a little bit in summer league. And I think when you look at like Wendell Carter Jr., like every time I turned around, it seemed like he was blocking a shot, and that was nowhere on his college profile. That he was, had that defensive potential. He mellowed out a little bit as the summer league went on that end. But like, if he can show anything there, that's already a big surprise. And I feel that, based on what you can see on scouting reports, like in terms of his theoretical ability to spread the floor and kind of contribute on the offensive end, and pairing him with Markkanen if they start doing that, which is what I really hope that they do. And I think that's the plan. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think like at the spot going into the rookie year, I mean, the alternative was what did everybody hear? Michael Porter Jr., right? Like everyone was talking about how, everyone was worried that the Bulls were going to go there. There was a small contingency among the Bulls fan base that really wanted him. Maybe he ends up being something. I never wish for a rookie to come in the league and fail, but tell you what, I'm very happy that they went the route they did.
I mean, Michael Porter Jr. already is having another back surgery, right? Didn't he just have another one after the draft? So
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, I mean, the back issue is still isn't fixed, and there was a reason people were scared of the reports. Wendell Carter Jr. though, Wakanda forever. I I like this pick. This was a solid pick, and like you mentioned, the defense was the question mark for Wendell Carter Jr. Can he like keep the motor up? He showed glimpses of it in summer league, so you like to see that. The offense isn't bad. I would love to see them pairing him and Markkanen. I don't know. I mean, if you're playing Robin Lopez a lot of minutes or Feliciano, I don't know what you're trying to do, but I think that is definitely the backcourt for the future, or front court. No, sorry. But yeah, I'm okay with this pick. This was a really good pick, especially with where they were 8th, 7th.
Yeah, 7th
Yeah,
overall. So
7th again.
Yeah, I think they would have loved Mobamba to fall one more spot, but this is a good pick.
yeah, I think you got to be pretty happy about the pick. I know some people going to the draft had Wendell Carter as maybe the second best big in the draft. So there is a lot of potential there. And like you guys mentioned, in Summer League, he definitely showed some flashes defensively. I know there was a question if he could keep on the perimeter, and he did a little bit of that in Summer League. Obviously, Summer League in the regular season NBA are a lot different, but only time will tell. Moving on to their other draft pick, Chandler Hutchinson, 22nd overall. There was word before the draft that he had a promise from the Bulls, and it looks like it was a real thing. Obviously he has some overall game. The defense is a little unknown playing zone in college, but what were your thoughts on Hutchinson?
I kind of like, honestly, maybe kind of whatever. I'm not very enthused. I'm not one way or the other on it. He has, some height and some length, and I think that's exciting. I think to commit to someone so far out, as they supposedly did, seems a little silly when you don't know who's going to fall where in the draft. And I don't know. The big thing I heard that I agreed with, coming from other places, and I think I heard some people like, it might have been like Will Gottlieb and Steph No over at the Athletic, or I'm not sure. I think it might have been them, but they made some really good points about how, like, maybe even Nate Duncan and Daniel LaRue, that is Hutchison the kind of guy that you needed to grab him at 22, or was he going to be there later? And you could have either, traded down and doubled down on some picks, or just waited it out, or was there someone else on the board at that point? And that I don't know. I certainly hope he's good. I just he wasn't I don't feel anywhere near the same way, obviously, about him that I feel about Wendell Carter Jr.
Is this right? Basketball Reference that he was in college when he was 16. It says that he
22.
What'd you say?
He's 22, I think now.
Okay, so all right, so the numbers are wrong, because that was like my biggest question coming into this, because it said he was 16 his freshman year. And I was like, there ain't no way that this kid is like some kind of super genius and can just play basketball.
Hey, might be a doctor, right?
Right, yeah.
Take over the medical staff too.
I mean, you like to see that his numbers got better every year in college. I mean, his last year he averaged 20 points per game, shot 47% from the field, 35% from three. I didn't watch a lot of him. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, I don't watch a ton of college, and I definitely don't watch a lot of Boise State. But like you mentioned, he does have good length, and if he can shoot like that, I mean, this is kind of a guy who I think edges off Valentine if he becomes, a steady offensive threat.
Yeah, he seems like he has potential to be a solid role player on a team. Obviously the upside's unsure. It doesn't look like he'll be an all-star or anything like that, but there is potential there. Moving on to free agency, Jabari Parker was the big talk. 2 years, $40 million. Second year team option. Still a lot of upside with Parker. There's obviously questions about his defense and his overall mindset and his three-point shooting. But thoughts on Parker?
I love Jabari Parker. I live in Wisconsin. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances who are Bucks fans. I've taken a shine to them since they've had Jabari and Giannis. He's always been great to watch. It's been really tough to watch him go through the injuries that he's gone through. But my goodness, that presser he did was just glorious. He doesn't even fake it at all. Like, he's just like, now, if they're good, they should score on me, and like, I'm going to go out there and get buckets is essentially what he was saying. And I'm like, that's refreshing to hear.
I love Jabari Parker. I think obviously the 2 ACL injuries, that is what it is. That's concerning. You have to be cautious whenever somebody has multiple injuries, especially to the same knee. He's going to Chicago. Chicago knows all about knee injuries with one of their past superstars, past MVP winners. If Jabari Parker hits his ceiling, this is a really tremendous offensive scorer. Like you just mentioned, Dan, he could give two shits about defense, basically. If the guy's really good, he's like, I'm going to get cooked. It is what it is, which isn't obviously a great mentality to have. When he was healthy, though, him and Antetokounmpo in the fast break were really fun. This Bulls team looks like they're going to want to get out and run. So that's where Jabari Parker, I think, is at his best, is when he's out and gunning. Obviously, him playing the small forward, which is likely where he's probably going to line up, isn't ideal. He's more of a small ball power forward. I don't think he has enough lateral quickness to be a true small forward wing, especially defensively. But I like the chance. What do you have to lose? You have a very young team. You have some decent young players around him, and LaVine and Markkanen and Dunn and Wendell Carter Jr. Why not try to build, the next little young core by just signing Jabari? Maybe Jabari comes in and he's the missing piece of this team. They all grow and they all stay healthy and they pop. Because right now, offensively, this team should be really good. I wouldn't be surprised if this team averages, 110, 115 points per game. They have a lot of offensive weapons. The defense may give up 125, 130 points. So for 2 years, I think it's a team option for the second year, right? Or is there an
team
option?
Second year, yep.
Team option second year. So this is very low risk, high reward for me.
Yeah, they'll make probably, I don't know, kind of 5 times the contract back in jersey sales, bringing a Chicago boy, back to the team. Like
that too.
The boy has come back a man. He's ready to bring it with the big league team now. And you're absolutely right. That's another thing worth touching on too about Jabari's game is like he's got those knee injuries, and he is probably definitely going to line up at the 3. And like, okay, is he going to keep like knowing his mentality? Like I love the press conference, but if he's going to play the 3 at the same time, you have to be like, is he going to keep anyone in front of him, or is like. And I think he'll put in some effort, but like, yeah, you do have to start to wonder about some of those things on defense. And yeah, the Bulls defense as a whole right now it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. Cause you're right. They probably can score, but they're probably looking at giving up a lot more also on a lot of nights.
Yeah, it's definitely a risk taking Parker. But I think the fact there is a team option gives you some light, moving forward. But, it'll be a wait and see type of thing, like you guys said, the defense, and is he going to hit that ceiling? Do you have any concern about him impacting the other guys on the team, taking away shots or setting a bad example with his defense? And obviously there was plenty of talk in Milwaukee about him being a problem in the locker room and not even getting along with Giannis.
Well, I don't know. It's tough to say. I think they got a lot of young guys, and I don't know who they're going to gravitate to or how they're going to gravitate to them based on just the differences. LaVine is an interesting guy. Everyone remembers, slam dunks and draft night, right? Like his reaction to being drafted and however you want to read that. And you've got Bobby Portis out there, which we, right at the top, we were talking about, his little outburst. And then, you've got guys like Jabari in the locker room, and you got Markkanen, and what does this mean for Markkanen's development? And, is he going to be able to assert himself, especially on a team that's going to have so many people looking to get shots up? So I think for me, having said all of that, my perspective with this Bulls team is I'm going to watch, but I'm going to sit back and watch it, and we just got to be ready for whatever they give us, because there's a lot of potential outcomes here with this roster.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned. I think Milwaukee kind of just turned into, it was a mess. This season was kind of a mess for them. Jason Kidd got fired. Obviously, Parker and the knee injury was coming back late. When you come back from an ACL injury, you're obviously kind of sluggish. We've seen this before from any player who comes back from injury. Paul George, LaVine. Normally, there's just, it cakes your body a couple months to get back in the swing of things when you finally hit a court. And he was on a team that was fighting for a playoff spot, that got in the playoffs, that was in a tough first-round matchup, so he wasn't getting the minutes. He was complaining about that. I'm not worried about whether or not he's going to be an issue for the team. I think new environment, new guys. He obviously wants to be in Chicago. He's from Chicago. I think that'll, as long as he stays healthy, that'll lower any issue he's going to be.
Yeah, I think I have a little bit more concern. I think, complaining about minutes and not playing any defense last year in the playoffs is kind of nervous, and then the whole thing and not getting along in Milwaukee. But it does make sense that some of it was the Bucks' problem. Obviously, Jason Kidd isn't the easiest person to get along with, but it's kind of just like a wait and see thing. So moving on from there, they signed a couple guys to two-way contracts and training camp deals, but the big re-signing was they matched the offer sheet from Sacramento, 4 years, $78 million for Zach LaVine. Obviously, this is somewhat of a risk as well. What were your thoughts on re-signing LaVine?
It's the Bulls' way, first of all, right? Is that they did this also, the same kind of approach I think with Butler, and it's kind of typical of them in the sense of they'll let the market determine it and not go after that max, and they'll just they'll match and keep. And as far as LaVine is concerned, I think I agree with the notion that I've heard a lot of other people also, kind of go with, which is I don't know, even if the Bulls weren't that excited about LaVine, if they could bring themselves to acknowledge that they weren't bought in on one of their main pieces at the very least, if not the main piece in the Butler trade. So what does it say if you trade away a player who obviously is head and shoulders above anyone you have on the roster right now in terms of his his on-court impact, and the guy you got in return for it, or one of the main guys you got in return for it, is just essentially allowed to walk right after that. I don't think they would have ever allowed themselves to do that, even if they're not that excited about what they've seen so far from him.
I'm right there with you. That was my stance on the LaVine situation too, is the fact that the Bulls didn't want to kind of like admit defeat. If you let him walk, you're admitting defeat. It was kind of similar to what the Orlando Magic did, I think, and you bring it back Aaron Gordon. They couldn't allow Aaron Gordon to leave after what Tobias Harris and Oladipo became after they left. So I think for the Bulls, it was kind of similar. LaVine, even though they may not be 100% sold on him, coming back from a knee injury, I'm sure some people realize that that's a tough injury to come back from right away. And his body, I mean, he still shows some glimpses. I think he had like a 38-point game at one point. So he did have some explosive pop still, but I just don't think they could have let him walk away in good conscience.
Do you think that the Bulls could have gotten a better deal if they were to send an offer to LaVine before he got the offer sheet from Sacramento, or he was going to look for the biggest deal possible regardless?
I think probably that one. He's probably looking for the biggest deal. I think that's what a lot of players are doing now, and rightfully so. You're going to get paid. You might as well go out and see who's going to pay you.
Yeah, I'm right there too. I don't think he was looking around. I think he was looking around for the most money. I mean, that's what every restricted free agent tries to do. Obviously, sometimes you can become Nerlens Noel and end up, losing money. I mean, we see it happen every once in a while, but I think for LaVine, it was trying to find the max money, and then Sacramento was the only team out there, by at least the reports I saw, that had any really real interest in him, aside from the Bulls wanting to possibly retain him, which they did.
What would you guys say is best case and worst case scenario for LaVine?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, that's a tough one. You threw me a knuckleball in the sense that trying to gauge what I expect from LaVine. I don't want to be too hard on him. My knee-jerk reaction is a best case scenario is he's like a 22-7 guy consistently who might occasionally dribble too much and will probably struggle always, if he wants to be working with the ball in his hand instead of coming off of motion, things like that. That was something anyway I saw early in his career when I was tinkering around with a few numbers, is that and he might have changed. I haven't looked at the numbers from last year yet, but I know with his Timberwolves early on, his shot percentages would like precipitously drop off the longer he was dribbling the ball as opposed to coming off of action and just popping shots. And if he can get back to being a guy who moves a lot and shoots, he can be a really dynamic weapon in this offense. Worst case scenario, barring health, he just, he wants to hold on to the ball a lot. He's going to slow down the rest of the team. He's going to stunt the development of Markkanen and maybe Wendell Carter Jr., both guys who are, supposed to be really good on offense. So, that'd be my biggest concern there. What happens with him and Parker? and ball sharing. But that's kind of where I fall in for best and worst case for him.
I'm trying to think of like a player comparison for Zach LaVine. I can't really find one, but I think you're right. Best case scenario is like a 22 and 6 or 7 guy. I mean, he's got to get more efficient shooting the ball, and I think he shot under 40% this year. Obviously, it was limited time and everything else. The stat, I wouldn't be. I'm not surprised by that stat, Dan. Whatever stat, I'm sure it's probably relatively the same of him, coming off action shots and him dribbling the ball, creating his own shot, because he does sometimes get. It's like a mixtape, like any kind of world star hip hop, mixtape. I think of a basketball player dribbling. Zach LaVine is, the stereotypical one.
Right.
So I can definitely see that. I think that's probably the best case scenario if he kind of plays more off ball. Maybe Chris Dunn continues to develop and becomes a solid playmaker. I do like the fact that if this team's out in transition and everyone's running, I feel like the ball is just naturally going to be bouncing around. Seeing him fly high with Jabari Parker is kind of fun to imagine. So I think best case scenario is the team kind of facilitates, they all move the ball around, and then LaVine can just be more efficient. And the worst case, I think worst case is the fact that he maybe gets another knee injury. Maybe the second one pops up. Maybe he then loses a step. I mean, he's still crazy athletic. Even after the first knee injury, he has not lost a step off his jumping ability. This year, though, or after bearing another injury, who knows what happens? I mean, Blake Griffin used to be a high flyer, and then
sounds like a
after
strand of weed. No.
yeah, right. High flower coming soon. But after a few leg injuries of Blake Griffin, I mean, his jumping ability is far less than it was when he jumped over the car. Even though it's just the hood, it wasn't really that great of a dunk. Let's just be real. But he was a high flyer, and I want to say flower. I'm not really sure why, but so that's the worst case for LaVine is if he gets banged up.
Yeah, and that's always scary. I think another thing for him would be defense as a focus as well in terms of his best and worst case scenario, where he happens to put energy in defensively. But before we get to the departures, would you say Jabari Parker and Zach LaVine are going to hurt the development of some of the young guys, or they're going to help it?
I like that question too, because that's one of the questions that makes the Bulls so exciting. Like they're going to be such a good source of content and just like intrigue as a team this year. And I think I don't know. I think Jabari seems like in general kind of like, I'm not sure about the, his locker room approach. And again, being in Milwaukee, especially if he didn't want to be there. I think like though, based on how he cares about the city, that's always been kind of like a key ingredient for a lot of guys, like even like, Joakim Noah, like those guys who are kind of like a core piece of the locker room, and having those players either being from that city or growing, a part of their identity into that community. And that connection has always been important. So I think it's very possible. And I really haven't heard anything negative about LaVine. So, and I think both of those players being in Chicago, works for them, because I feel that they both want to take on a little bit of a larger role. And, with Giannis and Butler and Towns and Wiggins, those kind of players being on the court with them, they were never going to really have that emergent opportunity, probably. So I would say that there is a lot of opportunity for them to take on that leadership and help those younger guys. And we're, maybe what we're talking about here even if they're not intending to do it, take some pressure off of the young guys in terms of the offensive focus. If Jabari gets a game going and they start doubling down on him, someone's going to come open, and eventually that's going to be guys like Markkanen and Carter Jr. So in that sense, this is definitely a great opportunity for them to grow themselves and to step up and take that leadership role. I think that's fair.
So the question is if Jabari Parker and Zach LaVine can become leaders?
No, it's if they'll have a positive impact on the young players' development or a negative impact.
Okay. I misheard the question. That is a really good question. Oh man, this is
I kind of derailed you there.
No, you were spot on though. This is with this question. I think it's going to go wrong to a degree. Maybe I'm going to be the devil's advocate. I think it's going to stunt slightly. 'Cause I think Jabari Parker, because of the team option and because of the knee injuries, this is a season where he needs to make a point. I'm not saying necessarily he's going to play bad or play good for that matter, but I think he's more so going to be out for himself and trying to prove a point, especially with how Milwaukee ended. I think there is something to be said there. I think Zach LaVine, even though he just got the money and everything else, I think he still has a lot to prove. And we've seen him kind of get, like we mentioned, dribble happy and everything else. I feel like these two, even though I think this team is going to be fun offensively, I am kind of predicting and seeing certain nights where you kind of see Jabari Parker and Zach LaVine get locked into their own worlds where they're Jordan for the night. They think that they need to will the team to a victory or whatnot. Maybe they mess up the flow of the offense because I don't know where I stand on Hoiberg as a coach yet. Like, I'm not sure if I'm even on the fence. I may be on the other side where I'm okay if he gets fired. So I think it's more so if he can kind of rein in these two young guys. But I kind of have a feeling they're going to be doing a lot of the offensive pushing themselves, kind of roguely.
Yeah, I could see it going kind of both ways as well. Obviously, there is the point about them taking pressure off some of the younger guys, but also, are they going to put up too many shots and not pass the ball enough and kind of ball hog a little bit? I think it's a possibility. But moving on to departures, they lost a couple guys. Jerry Grant via trade, David Nwaba, Sean Kilpatrick, Noah Vonleh, Paul Zipser. Out of these guys, what are they losing? And who's going to be the biggest loss?
Yeah, I went on a little tangent thinking about this here when you're saying that, in my brain, because I don't really think they're losing much in Jaren Grant. A lot of people that I interact with who were Bulls people, they wanted to believe in Jaren Grant. I wasn't one of them. I never really saw it. Maybe he still gets there. I just didn't see it. Vonleh, it was too bad. It was a flyer. It didn't work out, but it hasn't worked out for him for several teams now, so that's not surprising. Kilpatrick, I was a little bit, I don't know, disappointed, I think, in the sense that if you look at like point guard depth right now, it's essentially Chris Dunn and Cameron Payne. And I'll let you think about that for a second. And,
not the most enticing group.
Yeah, no, it's just not good. So, I mean, like, what is it? Maybe Kilpatrick isn't the answer, but I mean, is it really going to be any worse than, watching Cam Payne spend another season in turtlenecks dancing on the sideline? I don't know. So, like, that's whatever. And Zipser, I'm sad about. He was a nice second round pick. He didn't emerge. That was too bad. I wanted him to be good. But like, he just didn't have that, and he wasn't going to get that chance again with the Bulls. So, good luck to him. Whatever he's got, for skill, let's see it somewhere else. And all that's to say that the one that makes me particularly upset, and last I checked, which was yesterday, I still hadn't seen anything that he had officially signed anywhere. I might have that wrong, but so there's a hope maybe a miracle will happen, or they'll make a mistake and bring him back. But it's David Nwaba. That one it's actually infuriating. That guy worked so hard. He brought so much positive stuff to the court. He was just the kind of player that I really enjoyed watching last season when I had the Bulls on. And he does all the small stuff, and he brings that intensity and that effort that I think you're going to be missing from some of the other guys more often than not. And you can't replace that. And, he was a great story, and he's a feel good story too. And there's just so many good things that he brings to a team. And I'm very upset that they made the mistake of letting him go.
Nwaba is the only guy I think is kind of a loss. I have enjoyed him too since his days at the Lakers. He's a nice young player, plays defense, which not a lot of guys in this roster do. Crazy athletic. He did have some nice offensive games last year, if I recall. I mean, the jump shot still isn't pretty, but I'm really high on him. I liked him a lot. It's definitely a loss. A guy who can play defense, who is crazy athletic. He would have fitted with this team because realistically, if he can cut to the basket, they could find use for him if he plays defense.
Yeah, I think Nwaba's a guy as well. You know, you look at you just losing that energy and that effort and something that with this team that might be in question at times. I think you kind of try to bring him back. And like Daniel said, there is still a possibility that he could come back. So that's something to keep an eye on. I'm surprised he hasn't gained a little bit more attention because he just seems like a nice role player to have off the bench.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is strange. And again, you look at I think the market, right, is a little weird right now because you have like a summer of overpay and then you have a summer of no one wants to pay. And I mean, for the peanuts, he's going to get paid, compared to a lot of other players that are just contract filler. It's like, how can he not catch on somewhere?
Yeah, it's definitely a surprise. Obviously, like you said, this whole offseason in terms of contract has been really weird.
He got
a lot of
signed.
deals.
Isn't he with the Cavs now?
That's what I was wondering about because, like, I checked on that yesterday and hadn't seen it, so I didn't know if it was official out there.
It was. He has committed to the Cavs. He hasn't officially signed. So in this free agency, after we saw Yogi Ferrell and Nemanja Bjelica, leave their teams, I think there's still a possibility. There's a reason he probably hasn't signed, but it looks like he's going to end up in Cleveland. But still surprising that more contending teams or playoff type teams weren't interested in. The Cavs, to me, probably aren't going to make the playoffs. I'm surprised that some of the other teams, weren't like, all right, we can get this guy in a small deal, bring him in for 1 year. He'll give us some energy and effort.
Yeah, and you guys are right. I checked on that. He did, commit the Cavs. I should have known that. I thought he had committed somewhere, but I had checked his official page, like I said yesterday, and I hadn't seen him officially signed. And that's a big pickup. I mean, for any team. I just don't like the Cavs don't exactly have much for room. So obviously he's not going to be earning a ridiculous income. And I think maybe it's even more frustrating, right? Not only just because you look at some of the guys on the roster, like a campaign. I don't really want to go after him so much and, make it like a campaign, but like at the same time, it's like this dude was part of a trade. He hasn't really shown anything. He's still on the roster. When he's running up the court, he looks like he's running into a wind tunnel, like just like max resistance when he's jogging. It baffles me. But like you got guys like that on the roster, and but you can't find a place for Nwaba. I don't know. It's very disappointing.
Yeah. Moving on from departures, we're going to talk predictions. Who's going to be the Bulls starting five on opening night?
If I just say who's going to be out there on Saturday night, it's most likely going to be probably Dunn, LaVine, Holiday, Markkanen, and Lopez, right? I mean, I think that's pretty much going to be set in stone and watch something will happen. But I think that's what it would be for opening night. If we're talking longer term, I think that changes over the course of the season. But when we start the season, I think it's going to be the usual suspects.
For me, I think it's going to be Chris Dunn at the point guard, Zach LaVine at the shooting guard, and then this is when like you cringe. Jabari Parker at the 3, Markkanen at the 4, and I feel like they're going to start Robin Lopez at the 5 early on, but I'm kind of predicting that by either late December, January, Wendell Carter Jr. starts starting at center.
Yeah, I'm pretty much spot on with you, Kory. I think a lot of the rumblings have been that Parker's probably going to start at the 3, and there's been talk about that. And then obviously paying him $20 million, you probably want to do. And I think Lopez will start for a chunk of the season. Then you'll see Wendell Carter because I think Lopez is a candidate to probably get moved this year.
Yeah, I'm with you there because that's where I was going to go with it. Is that I think the Lopez contract and the Holiday contracts are both probably something movable, and they should look to move them. And that would open that up where hopefully my thought is, by the time you get to the trade deadline, you're seeing Markkanen and, Wendell Carter Jr. paired together. And I'd bet that you guys are completely right. It's completely sensible that Parker will start. I just wonder I think you're right. It's just, I wonder how they're going to juggle it and just what they're going to do with it. Because no matter what you do, even if they're not great fits, there's always going to be someone where they're like, well, we can't put him on the bench. Like you can't put Markkanen on the bench and he's not going to take over Lopez's spot. Wendell Carter Jr. isn't ready. And you got obviously Dunn and LaVine. And then, it's like, yeah, you're probably right on Parker. I'm just,
You're just hoping it doesn't happen.
I'm just gonna be wrong. It's fine.
I think go ahead, Kory.
I would just say, like, even though I think it's gonna happen, it's not like I think it's ideal. I mean, I think Parker at the 3 is not good, but I like I said, like, I don't think, like you just said, I don't think they put a guy, on the bench for $20 million a year. It just feels like he was brought in to start.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I think another avenue of moving Lopez will allow them to play marketing once in a while at the 5, and they could play Parker a little bit more at the 4, which I think is obviously his best position. I think we'd all agree on that, but we'll see what happens. But who would be your breakout starter for the Bulls next season?
Breakout starter, huh?
Breakout starter.
That's interesting, right? Man, I really want to give you like something that's like, wow, good in-depth, deep sleeper pick, like dark horse guy, but like I just can't do it. It's either I'm going to get the next step up of Markkanen, or Parker's going to have a fully healthy season, is what I think. Is what you're going to see, and a fully healthy season of Parker where he's going to get shots up. That'd be fantastic and worth every penny, and a good sign for the team moving forward.
All right, so I'm gonna go with Chris Dunn. I think nice. I like Chris Dunn. I do like Chris Dunn, but I like guys who play defense. So it's he plays good defense. The offense took the jump last year, obviously. So for me, I think he's close to breakout. I mean, if his jumper becomes consistent, I'm not talking crazy consistent. Just shoot like 43% from the field, and maybe 35, 36% from 3, and that's good for Chris Dunn, who hasn't really shown any of that. He's quick. I love the hands, the steal. I think the defense is going to be there. I think the defense is going to be better. Obviously guys like him who are a little bit smaller, it takes a couple of years for their body to get NBA ready, but I mean, he's still very quick. So I think Chris Dunn is set to break it. I also think the offense will come to him easier when you got guys like LaVine, Parker, and Markkanen who are going to demand, those are the first 3 options clearly. And guys like Chris Dunn will be able to be, the cutter to the rim, to get the wide open looks, and just play defense and make for those guys.
I'm going to go with Markkanen as well. I think he's a guy just being a big, having an offseason put on weight should help his game. But I also see the thing with Dunn as well. Like you said, having other good offensive players around him should make his life easier. And then just developing a skill set. Defensively, he showed a lot last season. I know a lot of people have him as one of the best, defensive guards in the NBA already. So we'll just see what happens with the offensive development. But breakout bench player.
Oh, yeah, for the bench. I mean, to hop back real quick too, like I'm all there with you guys. Like it'd be so great for Dunn to, really push to another level. I did need to comment on that because his defense. You're right. Like the Bulls are going to be sore for defense anywhere they can find it, and that'd be huge for them if he can really elevate himself and find that next level. But for the bench, it seemed kind of like. I think I can narrow this down to basically Cristiano Felicio, Cameron Payne, Bobby Portis, or Wendell Carter Jr. Those are the guys who instantly come to mind for me. I feel that Valentine is kind of at this point going to be the that next McDermott guy who just doesn't quite get it all together. Maybe not in his case. It's not it's not a concussion that sidelines his momentum, but just overall, he just probably is a guy who's going to be relegated back there and doesn't find a spot because of the minutes and the position battle you'll see on the wing. So I think the easiest place to see emergence is probably going to be in the front court. And at this point, I don't think Portis is going to turn a corner and all of a sudden become a 20-10 guy. He just hasn't shown that so far, so I don't think that's coming, and I don't think even Portis thinks, or maybe he does, but I don't think anyone besides Portis, and his immediate family thinks that he's going to be taking away minutes from Markkanen or Parker, and so I think that kind of rules him out. So if everything goes according to what we'd expect, right, which is, and I think we've talked about this already, is if we believe that Lopez is going to be moved by the deadline and that's going to give, Carter Jr. a chance to step in, I think that's really when he's going to emerge and not maybe pick up any rookie of the year kind of momentum, but, at least, get his name out there. And I think he'll have that mini market in effect, not having the benefit of starting the full season, but that'd be a guy I'd go with is, if he gets a big chunk of minutes down the stretch of the season, he's probably going to show out.
It's funny because like my backup choice, just so we make this clear, is Bobby Portis. I think there's like a very slim chance that he actually does kind of slightly turn the corner. I don't think he's gonna go like crazy. I don't think like 20 and 10, but I think because he can play the center, like a small ball 5 and a 4, that like he's gonna get minutes still. Like I think he still plays probably between 20 and 25 minutes. How efficient those minutes are, who knows? The crazy eye Portis though, I'm actually a semi fan of his game and his right hook. But for me, I think it's got to be Wendell Carter Jr. We, as you mentioned, we alluded to the fact that if Robin Lopez is traded, Wendell Carter Jr. is likely the guy filling those shoes, which means he has to be doing pretty damn well on the bench for them to trade Lopez and to move him into a starter role. So I think it's got to be Wendell Carter Jr. I think the offense is going to be even keel. We're going to be okay with the rookie up and down, and then on defense we're going to see some of that high motor. And I do think he's going to be a big part of this team going forward, and he will be starting at one point or another, whether it's the end of 2018 or the start of 2019.
Yeah, I like Wendell Carter as well. I like the fact that he can help the team in a lot of different areas. He's not amazing at anything really, but he can help you in a lot of different ways. So I think that'll benefit. I also see the point with Portis as well, going to a contract year. That's always a possibility. And then anytime you have somebody who plays with a crazy energy, he does, he could have a big season. But going over to the wins. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry about that. No, I wanted to say, though, that I think that's a really good point that you brought up that I didn't mention at all and really should be considered is if we have Bobby Portis playing any sort of role at center, because if for whatever reason Wendell Carter Jr. fails to emerge, and they do move on from Lopez, all you've got there is Felicio, who's coming off a very down year and doesn't look like he's offering a whole lot. So if it presents itself as an opportunity for them to have someone who can move with more pace and can spread the floor with his shooting a little bit like Portis can do, and they do want to run and gun a lot, you're right. There is a possibility there actually, if they move him up to the 5, that, he could find his feet and, maybe there is something there. So I like that angle. I like the idea of, finding hope for crazy-eyed Portis.
It'll be an interesting season for sure. Going over to season predictions, what's best case scenario for the Bulls?
Well, so I'll present this to you in two ways. And it just depends on which version of the world you live in. It's kind of like video games. Do you use the inverted controls or do you use standard controls, right?
Game changer.
First, you're right. Bulls shine out and get 37 wins in a playoff spot, right? Like they exceed expectations and they sneak in and get that 8 seed, which again, they did that in the 3 alpha season, which was odd, where they hit 500 and did their thing. To put that together, right, we're talking some significant hot streaks, kind of like a run like they put together last year, but instead of it stretching over a month, it's got to stretch over probably 8 weeks of the season. They've got to be on that level and, kind of putting out that kind of product. The starting 5 is going to have to gel. It's going to have to be cohesive in order to hit that, to get to that place where they're in the fight for that 8 seed. We can't have LaVine and Parker struggling to figure out how they fit together and who's going to get looks when and how they're going to share the ball. Markkanen can't plateau or step backward. He needs to continue to grow into his role. It's going to require great work from whoever's at center and, regardless of who that is. And, probably Dunn's going to have to be that guy, he's just going to have to be that guy that basically we're hoping he is, right? That he can be, as Kory mentioned. But like, that's one way to look at it as a best case, right? Is that they could get to 37 wins and challenge for a playoff spot if they overperform, by a significant amount. The flip side on that, right, is how does that help them going into the draft next year? Because they aren't going to really be contending for anything, even if they make the playoffs, most likely. There's like a less than 1% chance I think that right now from like 538 for them making the playoffs with their model that they have. So if we're being realistic, the numbers would say that they're going to miss. And so do you want to be drafting, around number 7 again for a third year in a row? Or do you want to be looking at a guy like Zion Williamson, who, for the record, in case you missed it yesterday,
looked like a monster.
Yeah, just unreal, right? So, like, best case scenario just depends on how you look at it, because the flip side of it is Bulls trade off, Lopez and Holiday, and maybe even Portis and Valentine, even if they can find some assets for them. They might dip a little bit. They might stumble around to like 21, 22 wins, put themselves in the conversation for that top pick, get one more guy, at the top end of the draft before they really truly to ramp up in the ascent and see what they can do in free agency next summer. So it just depends on which way you look at it. And to say the other would be the worst case. I know you haven't asked me really for a worst case yet, but that would be the opposite. Would be either you want this team to push for the playoffs, probably come up a little bit short, but exceed their win prediction total of around 27, right? Get up to like 30, 35. And you'd be happy to see some growth, from some of the young players. Conversely, you ship everybody out who isn't considered part of your future core, get anything you can back in the way of draft picks for any of that, and you set yourself up for a good draft pick in 2019, and then start building up from there.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much summarized it beautifully. Best case scenario for this team, record-wise and win-wise, would be, LaVine, Parker, healthy, efficient. Their games get elevated. Dunn, Markkanen, all those guys as well. This team somehow slips into the playoffs. They're an 8 seed, a 7 seed at best, like best case, like record-wise scenario. Or the true win scenario is that this team, just doesn't win. Maybe some guys take some strides, but they can't win. Maybe they're scoring 110 points per game, but they're giving up, 120. They're just getting blown out the water. No one's really playing defense, but they're still winning. We're still losing, but they're still growing as a team and as a unit. And like you said, maybe they get Zion. I mean, didn't he dunk from like the free throw line the other night too, right? Like that.
Yeah, he had a video dunking from the free throw line. He had a block yesterday. I swear to God, he was floating in the air. Like he just was hanging. A guy his size, I think he weighs around 280, and his vert is like 40 plus. He's just like a physical beast.
Yeah, that's the best case scenario, realistically. You get somebody like that, or like an RJ. I mean, RJ Barrett really doesn't fit in, but you get a guy like that who can be another face alongside your already young face core. So that's probably the best case. And then the worst case, which is, it's always funny because I always get tied up on this, because the worst case and the best case for a lot of these bottom 10 teams are so wishy-washy. But the worst case would be realistically for them to be an 8 seed. Even unless you're seeing a lot of growth, unless these young guys are really showing like, wow, if we add, 1 or 2 pieces, this team can actually be, a top team in the East maybe once these guys develop further. If that's what this team is and they make like an 8 seed, then that's completely okay. But if you're an 8 seed because, you're maybe like 4 games under 500 and the East is just that bad, you snuck in, you missed out on, a guy like Zion, then, it's kind of a wash of a season. And you really, hopefully you saw enough in the young guys, but it probably isn't the best.
Yeah, I think Daniel was pretty spot on it. Kind of like you said, Kory, for these bottom 10 teams, it kind of depends who you're asking. Some want to see playoffs, some want to see tanking. I think for the Bulls, it might make more sense to tank and add another young piece because they have so many young pieces already. I mean, the counter argument would be, let's have a competitive season. I know next offseason they have some money in free agency possibly, especially if they don't take a Parker option up. So that could be another scenario.
Bring back Butler.
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't like the front office. But what would be the actual scenario that you expect from the Bulls next year? What's your actual prediction?
Oh, well, for the real scenario, I think it's most likely that we continue to suffer through GAR packs, and that Hoiberg will, continue to show flashes of, what is he doing? along with some decent progression. That would be my hope. That he'll have a core that'll buy into his team, to his vision a little bit, even if sometimes like his play calling is a little confusing. He has shown a little growth, which is good. And if you can get a full healthy season out of everybody, and you can get Wendell Carter Jr. Into the rotation at the end of the year, and put up I'll give him like 20. I'll give him 27 wins. Sure. I think initially I was going to go like 25, but they always do a little better than I expect from them. They could just because they follow my blog posts and they need to stick it to me personally.
Yeah, I think actual prediction. I'm right around. I'm probably right between there, somewhere between 25 and 28 wins. I think we see some nice flashes from the young guys. Maybe they're at some point in time in the discussion for the 8th seed. They probably do have some kind of 7-8 game winning streak, and we're all like, oh wow, look at how this young Bulls team with Parker and LaVine, look how they run the floor. But I think they fall short of the playoffs and they're mid lottery pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 29 wins. I think there's definitely some player development. You're going to see nice flashes, but I think defensively they're going to have a lot of issues, and I wouldn't be surprised they move Lopez and get rather asset, midseason or whatnot. But I think it'll be a positive season for the Bulls to push them in the right direction. I don't know how Jabari Parker is going to play. I don't know if they're going to want to keep him the following season, but I think the other young guys are really going to develop nicely.
I think you're bold and brave, and I salute you for that. 29 wins, put it on the board.
So, it's a slight improvement of last year, and I feel like they did improve, and I think some of the young guys are just going to get better, and I don't think the East is super competitive in terms of there's these teams at the top that are really going to be going after wins hard. I think there's plenty of teams that the Bulls can beat. It could be one night they just score a lot of points and they get hot, and then other nights they just don't play defense, which I'll talk about in my emoji pick. So for the truth, what emoji represents the Bulls for you?
All right, so I don't know about you gentlemen or anybody else. I run it off an Android, not off of an Apple device.
Oh, I got to get off the show. Only iPhone's loud. I'm just kidding.
So we've got the joy of the money mouth face, and not only does money mouth have a money mouth on the Android version, he has money eyes. And so I realized immediately upon seeing that I was looking at basically any member of the Reinsdorf family when looking at that emoji. It's nothing to do with the team on the court whatsoever. But my thought is the money mouth face is the only emoji that either Jerry or Michael Reinsdorf have ever used when communicating with anyone that they have working in the Bulls organization. And Jerry just wants to know how he's paying for the White Sox, essentially. And I just, it's a little cynical, obviously, a little sarcasm to some extent, but isn't that the thing is just the Bulls are a profitable venture, and, that seems to be where ownership is at this point is, taking a really bizarre route to trying to build a competent team while making sure that, they're still cashing checks.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but I do have that same emoji. I think so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm almost positive.
That's right? Good.
Money face? Yeah.
Does it have money eyes?
Yeah, it's got to have money eyes. Right? Yeah, it's got money eyes, money tongue. There we go.
Perfect.
One and the same, baby. We're podcast, we're all smartphones. Bring a smartphone, you're on.
Love
it. So for me, the emoji is the thinking face. Because my thinking face is more of a curious face, because I am interested to see if, the guys like Parker and LaVine can stay healthy, if they can develop, can this team play any defense? So this is actually one of the first, I'm actually proud to say this, Nick. This is the first young team that I'm actually intrigued about. And when we get the league pass rating, it might be a little bit higher than expected. But I'm interested to see how this team develops. I like some of the young guys. I want to see Parker try and play the small forward position. And my guy Dunn and Markkanen. I love those guys. Hope they play well.
I like the picks. For me, I got the sword emoji, because this team's going to be all about attacking, all about offense, and not much defense. So I think sword fits them pretty well. But league
So,
pass wise, where do you rank them 1 through 10?
League pass, I'm going to go 6. The youth is going to be live, and you're going to get. I don't know. There's so much potential for them to be an offensive explosion on any given night, and the storylines of LaVine and Parker coming back from injury and having a full season under their belt with this team is captivating to me. It's probably going to spin a lot of content for a lot of sites, and then you've got Markkanen, and from watching Markkanen last year, I can tell, and I don't know how much you guys saw him. He's an absolute joy to watch. Like, he really is. Like, he's got a lot of skill. He seems to have a really good temperament. There's nothing off-putting about watching him play the game. It is a lot of fun. So that's really exciting. And yeah, I think Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be exciting. So yeah, I think you're right. As far as the young team goes, like Kory mentioned, and yeah, like there's a lot of young guys here who have the potential to really develop. And I think, on the night where your favorite team is media blacked out, or you just can't stand to watch them get run by the Warriors, this is going to be a good alternative.
Yeah, so I haven't broke 2 yet, or did I break 2? I got 2.5 maybe.
2 yet. No, I don't think so.
Oh wow! So this is really breaking the scale for me. I'm gonna say this is relatively high, Nick. Brace yourself. 5.5.
Wow.
I'm not like crazy up, but like I am interested. It's the East Coast team. I do have an early bedtime. I'm gonna go to bed by like 9:30. So it's an East Coast team. I can generally watch most, if not all, of the game because the Bulls are an East Coast team. Well, Central team, but they play a lot of East Coast time games. So this is a team I'm interested in. They're young, as we mentioned. A lot of young gunners, like you said, Nick, with the sword emoji. They're going to be scoring a lot of points. Offense generally will help keep me awake. So I'm intrigued. I'm not fully all in because I'm not sold on Hoiberg in the front office, but the roster itself has me intrigued.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a solid 5. I think there's a lot of potential. I mean, the only thing that probably keeping them down is there is the potential for tanking maybe later in the season. And then, LaVine and Parker sometimes can be a little bit boring to watch because they over dribble or take bad shots and whatnot. So 5 is my highest rating. I think this is the first one where Kory's ahead of me in the league pass ranking.
Big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. But obviously, this is kind of the reference to do every show. We're all NBA fans. We're going to watch basketball over everything. But if you had to pick a TV show to watch over the Bulls, what would it be?
A TV show I'm going to watch over the Bulls. That's tough because I'm afraid to say Rick and Morty.
Oh God, I don't know if I can be your friend anymore now.
See, this is the thing. Like, people are going to be like, "Oh man, you're one of them," and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I have Hulu, and that's my only access to current television programming. But I think like there's probably, honestly, I thought about this a lot, and I don't think there's a TV show I would rather watch over the Bulls right now. And I know that sounds crazy, especially considering how kind of a little bit hard and a little bit down on them I am. But like, man, I don't know about you guys, but in the world, the words of, Meta World Peace, I love basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, when it comes to your team, you it has to be like the season finale of Game of Thrones or something. I don't even know. Like, it's got to be
the final episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, the series finale of any show. If I really like it, like, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what's on TV. I'm gonna have to enjoy the live experience. With that said, oh man, the Bulls. I got to pick a good show though, because I put them at 5.5. So I got to pick a show I enjoy.
You set the bar rather high for yourself here,
yeah,
sir.
It's tough. Like, I was already able to throw away some of the shows that like I'm not that interested in. I'll pick a good show. I've already watched it, but Vice Principals from HBO.
Okay, I've seen that a couple times.
It's with Danny McBride. It's like 2 seasons long, 10 episodes, I think. They're vice principals, and it's just, I don't know, it's a big ordeal. It's really funny. I like comedies, so that was a good show. It's only 30 minutes long too, which is nice. You get a little laugh in, hit the snooze. So that's probably the only show I'd watch. One of the only shows I'd watch over it. There's a lot of shows,
I haven't,
but
I haven't
this is
seen
the
that
one.
one yet. Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. I'll have to check that out. I really like Danny McBride stuff.
Yeah, it's already over. It was literally just 2 seasons. The series is over, but it was you know, they're fun. They're him and I can't think of the co guy, but really funny.
Yeah, it's a good combination. Not a bad show at all. It's just a good show for a laugh. For me, I'll go with a show that used to be one that I liked a lot, but I've already seen every episode, and that's Weeds. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, not a bad
Oh,
show.
you're giving me. I apologize. I was like, what TV show is on right now? I'm going to go again. You finish, sir, and then I'm going again.
I'm good. I want to hear what you got.
Well, I mean, because you guys started talking about HBO. I'll take The Wire over the Bulls every day of the week until they're any good.
I'm saving that show for later on in this preview series, but that's a fantastic, phenomenal show. I just watched that earlier this summer for the first time.
I've never watched one episode. Sell me on it.
Basically, it's Baltimore cops versus Baltimore drug lords, basically. And Idris Elba's in it. He's like the main villain. I know you know who that is.
Yeah.
Who else is in it? The guy from Remember the Titans, you know, left side, strong side.
Mm-hmm.
He's in it. It's really good. It's 5 seasons long. It's a lot of guys. Oh, Littlefinger. It's one of his earlier shows. He played the mayor. Yeah. So it's got like a lot of people. You'll see him like, oh wow, this is like where they started, because the show is from like the early 2000s or late 1990s.
Yeah, I think it started in that early 2000 range, and in college,
Michael B. Jordan too, right? Wasn't this Michael B. Jordan's first ever acting job?
Yep. Yeah, he was in season 1. Yep.
Yeah, there you go, Michael B. Jordan. Nick, what else do you need?
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good show. I might have to check it out. Obviously, it's not a great time to start a show with the NBA season starting, but we'll see what happens. But all right, guys, that wraps. Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
I'm sorry, you got me started on TV, so I'm just like, we're gonna roll with this. I know you guys gotta go, I was actually talking to tweeting with a couple guys like Adi Joseph on Twitter, and we were talking about we tend to circle back. We don't talk too much, but every time we do, we're talking about Buffy, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like that's from my time period.
Watch that every morning before school. Not gonna lie, I would always put that on when I was like making breakfast and stuff. We're getting ready for high school. Yeah, that was a low key good show.
So like we went into it about like which season, because there's 7 seasons, and it's like which seasons are the good ones, and people will always have this ranking, and there's obviously the really popular seasons and the unpopular ones, and Adi was putting season 6 way up there, and I was like, I've got just enough time between now and when the regular season starts where I could probably squeeze season 6 in and revisit it again. And he had me thinking about that last week, and I'm like, I don't know, that'd be a bold move to try and squeeze that in right now, but that's another good one you should check out if you haven't seen it. I'll plug Buffy all day.
I've definitely heard a lot about it. Wasn't there some talk about Buffy getting a reboot, or am I mistaken?
I think a movie, like they're gonna like do, or maybe like it might have been a reboot, but like different characters. I don't know. That's one of those shows. There's been like a movie before the TV show. So
if you ever get really nerdy about it too, they did a season 8, 9, and maybe are in 10 even now for comic books, continuing off of the TV show. Yeah, it's alive and well, I guess. I don't know.
So there is going to be probably a reboot since they got more content they can put out on the big screen.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's already written too. It's usually a lot easier. But that wraps it up for the Bulls. As always, thank you guys for hopping on. Thank everybody for listening. You can check us out on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Google Play, and Dash Radio.